You're listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
You can put it on the board. Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all natural, dry-aged, USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste those best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, of course, the king of all, those jumbo and massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, likely be the best you ever had as well. Check them out at uppercutchops.com or give them a call and find out what's for dinner. 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935 for uppercutchops.com. Yes! All right, a big welcome in, everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Everybody also tuning in on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, cable affiliates, and WOW Cable TV as well as everybody on Hotel TV in all 210 Nielsen-rated markets from coast to coast. Don't forget those. And even those people that are watching, or I should say even listening in from social media. Thanks for subscribing, and following us. All right. So we're in the midst of this college football bowl season thing, which used to be a great thing. New Year's Day was the greatest day for college football every year. Everybody looked forward to all the bowl games and stuff. Now it's controversy and this and that, and this one's sitting out, and transfers and whatnot. So here now, with the transfers and opt-outs running amok in college football, the bigger question is there a way to fix this horrific situation? I don't know. Let me give you a hint. Some people suggest, show me the money! And of course I say, I don't think so. So, during the Sugar Bowl, here's a guy by the name of Nick Carparelli, the executive director of bowl season. This guy was at the game, standing on the sidelines, watching what was going on, looking towards the field as Texas and Washington played. Better yet, even during warm-ups for their big semifinal game. And of course, they seem to be all accounted for, right? There were really no opt-outs in this one because this one's playing for a chance to go to the national championship game, which of course the system is broken, but that's another discussion. But that wasn't really the case in a lot of the other bowl games. Now, enough players decided against participating in their bowl games, of course, bound for either the NFL or the transfer portal, some other nonsense. And of course, that sparked an outcry from stakeholders in these games, now including some high-profile coaches encouraging leaders to fix the problem. Question is there a real fix? Even Kirby Smart, the head coach at Georgia, he said after his team's dredging 63-3 over Florida State, this guy had said, people need to look at what's happening tonight. They need to fix this. There's still going to be bowl games outside of the college football playoff. People need to decide what they want and what they want to get out of it. It's really unfortunate for those kids on that sideline that had to play in that game that didn't have their full arsenal. It affected the game 100%, close quote. That was by Kirby Smart. And Kirby saw the Florida State team, well, really lay an egg because, well, frankly, they were missing, 20-odd people, whatever the hell it was. Who knows? The bigger problem is that money is getting in the way of everything. So as it turns out, Carparelli had some solutions, he says, or he inferred to, in fact, 3 of them, to both unclog a busy month of December football games and incentivize play in bowl games, which I already know where this one's going, and I'm going to proceed it with 2 things.
Show me the money!
And boo. So, he says to essentially eliminate early signing day. He also thinks that eliminating the fall transfer portal window may work. And of course, most notably, allow bowls to compensate players for participation. Come on, people. Now, Carparelli had said, quote, "This problem is not bowl games or the bowl system. The problem is all the unregulated circumstances around it now with transfer portal and the name, image, and likeness and the early signing period all happen to be at the same time. That doesn't occur in any other sport. That's what has to be fixed," close quote. Buddy, I don't know about that, but we're going to continue here, and then we're going to add an opinion, see if we can spice this thing up just a little bit. So, of course, for the second time in the past year, Carparelli is suggesting that the NCAA relax its rule preventing bowl games from offering players' name, image, and likeness cash to endorse their events. Of course, that deserves a big round of boos, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And in the past, he has also suggested that bowls shift at least a portion of their payouts from conferences to the athletes themselves, something perhaps more palatable for leaders given the NCAA President Charlie Baker's latest proposal. I'm not going to talk about that right now. Let's stick with this. So the proposal, generally speaking, would create a separate FBS subdivision in which schools are required to deposit funds for athletes into a trust. Now, Carparelli had said, quote, "The notion that players should be compensated for participating in bowl games at the end of the season is a very real discussion that needs to be had." He says, "I'd love to discuss with the NCAA the notion of student athletes being compensated to promote the event itself. I'm not sure what's wrong with that. What is legal? If they could promote the title sponsor of the game, destination of the game, the convention and visitors bureau of that area. There's a lot of ways that can be done now under the current rules. But I'd like to think that there could be more direct ways to do it." Close quote. Come on, man. We already know you want to pay everybody. Of course, not your money. Oh, no. You want job security. Some doubt that it's crazy. The whole thing just makes me sick. Some doubt that giving these kids the money directly for playing in bowl games would stop even significantly or slow the opt-outs. Others suggest that contracts offered by school affiliate name, image, and likeness collectives should require athletes to participate in bowls. But there are other ways, according to Carparelli. Moving or eliminating the early signing period has been much talked about. And over the last few years, especially December calendar games, etc., gets further and further clogged. I mean, there was 47 odd bowl games at this point. Most of them are in December. He also is suggesting limiting the transfer portal to one open window in the spring. Now, that's not a bad idea. I don't like the idea of transfer portal in the first place, but let's carry on. The moves could alleviate a packed December, allegedly. The month features, of course, the opening of the transfer portal, coaching transitions, the early signing period, bowl games, and soon 2 additional rounds of playoffs, as the CFP will grow to 12 teams starting next season. And of course, while the opt-outs aren't necessarily expected in playoff bowl games, the New Year's 6 bowls will host quarterfinals and semifinals. The other 35 bowl games could see an increase in athletes choosing not to play. You're talking 47 bowl games, folks. And Carparelli has said, quote, "We need to revisit the structure around the transfer portal. Maybe there should be only one transfer portal window that happens at the end of the academic year maybe allows student athletes to rethink things. Let me see how things go in the spring practice gives coaches an opportunity to get high school recruiting done, evaluate the roster of the spring, and people can make decisions based off of that. Close quote. Now, Carparelli has been in communication with key decision makers within college athletics about the issues themselves, and he encouraged by supporters for the bowl system and the future, of course, because it's the good old boys club. Opt-outs or not, bowl games remain popular with television viewers, and they normally draw more than 1 million viewers and routinely beat ranked and rating numbers for simultaneous broadcasts of the NBA, NHL, and college basketball regular season games. In fact, for instance, on December 27th, Duke's Mayo Bowl, Holiday Bowl, Texas Bowl, and Military Bowl each drew at least 2.2 million viewers. No single NBA, NHL, well, let's face it, any of those games marked even a quarter of that, according to Sports Media Watch. And of course, Carparelli had said in closing, all the commissioners and all the head coaches I talked to are adamant about the fact that bowl games and the bowl seasons are really important for college football. We really can't have a postseason system that only has 12 opportunities. It's important we protect the bowl system, and all the leadership in college football is committed to doing that, close quote. But of course, how that happens remains. We're going to talk about this when we come back from break. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus with your ringmaster, Sal.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Al Bubba Baker, quarterback breaker and the rib maker.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, this message is brought to you by, or this segment is brought to you by the Sports Circus. Make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which are our podcast. They can be heard over, pick your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Spotify or Apple or Google or, I don't know, Audible or or wherever we're Amazon. You can't get away from us. Even Pandora, as I understand it. I don't know. They're basically everywhere. They're all uncut, all unedited, just like this right here. Why we make mistakes? Because mistakes are human life. That's what we do. We don't fix it in the mix. We don't have to do that. If you don't like it, get over yourself. All right, so make sure you check out any of those shows. I don't know, there's thousands of hours of content there. Lots and lots of fun stuff to listen to. If you go on a binge, you could probably listen for, a month or two straight and still not hear something the same here on the Sports Circus. Also, make sure you check out the partners page. One of those partners that's been with us for a long time is the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. The College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Make sure to check them out, folks. All right, welcome back to everybody. You know who you are. TV, radio, streaming, etc. Back to this big issue that we covered in the last segment, and it was about the transfers and the opt-outs and all this other crap, trying to fix the bowl season. And you've got this guy. You've got this Nick Carparelli, who is the executive director of bowl season, implying essentially that the system is broken. But as it turns out, with his alleged suggestions to unclog the busy month of December, well, let's go ahead and eliminate early signing day, eliminate the fall transfer portal. I mean, look, I'm okay with those. But he says, most notably, to allow bowls to compensate players for participation. And now, remember his quote from last segment. He said, the problem is not bowl games or the bowl system. The problem is all the unregulated circumstances around it with the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness and early signing. And then he says, of course, or he implies that the notion that players should be compensated for participating in bowl games is a very real discussion. And of course, he said, I'd love to discuss this with the NCAA and what is legal for them. He said, essentially, I'm still not sure what's wrong with that as far as discussing student athletes being compensated to promote the games, et cetera, et cetera. Look, the fact is these kids are 18 years of age at least. They're old enough to fight for the country. They're old enough to sign a contract, right? They're old enough to basically do whatever it is that they got to do legally. They can fight for their country, et cetera. Well, they should be able to enter into contracts. But the problem is when you're playing college sports specifically, you have an eligibility window. A lot of you people that listen to this program may or may not know this, but I will tell you this in case you don't. You have an eligibility clock, but you also have to maintain amateur standing. Now, if you don't maintain amateur standing, technically, if you're paid to do something, then you are a hired gun or you're a professional. Thus, if you get paid, even the name, image, and likeness money, technically your amateur standing goes away. But because the NCAA wants their cut from these alleged student athletes when really they're athlete students, I would even argue that most of these kids aren't even students. They're just playing sports as a means to an end to get through to the next level and maybe play their sport. Maybe they want to go play basketball or something like that. So that's that whole one and done nonsense, right? So they're basically just, it's a placeholder until they get to the next level. So at the end of the day, a lot of scholarships, as I see it, are being taken from regular students. And the university system, the college system, is being destroyed by college football and college basketball. It's taking the very heart and soul of universities away from what they actually represent and throw it into this big fishbowl where there's student athletes alleged, where those student athletes are the focal point rather than the academic value of these universities and the research value. I mean, look, there's an ongoing issue with the Pac-12, what's remaining of it, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the reality is, by this Carparelli character saying, I'd love to discuss with the NCAA the notion of the student athletes being compensated, right? He says, I'm still not sure what's wrong with that. Buddy, there's a very long list of things wrong with that. And of course, he's going to say that because he's the executive director of bowl season, right? He wants all the eyeballs and everything. He wants the kids playing. So the sponsors, the big sponsors, will do what? They'll throw money at the bowl game. So maybe it's job security for him. I don't know. But what I do know is that it is fundamentally wrong for these alleged student athletes to be paid in the first place. They are student athletes. They are not paid professionals. If you're going to pay them, then take away their amateur standing and don't call them amateur athletes anymore. These kids technically would be professional athletes if you're going to pay them. And that's what they're not saying. With Ohio State's, I don't know, $110, $120 million recruiting budget every year, for year in, year out, I mean, it just seems like a convenient out for those guys, if that is the case, to get out of all the suspensions and fines and the death penalties enforced by booster money and all this other crap. It's just one big payoff over there, in my opinion. And that's all we see. Payoffs and payoffs. To what end? Where is the value of an education in this whole argument? That's the one thing that I'm not hearing anybody talk about. So you people that are listening over in Atlanta, Georgia, and in Auburn, Alabama, in Honolulu, Southwest Florida, maybe in Los Angeles, maybe in Las Vegas, 206 other markets across America. What are your thoughts? Because college sports is not everything. What if you live in, I don't know, what if you live in Wisconsin? You live in a little town called Ripon, Wisconsin, where there's a college there, a Division III school. I think it's called Ripon College, right? It's a good liberal arts school. And what if the whole name, image, and likeness thing doesn't affect your college? That's a Division III school. Okay, so maybe you're focused more on your academics than your athletics because you don't have the big money coming in like they do right down in Madison, Wisconsin for the Badgers, right? For Power 5, Big Ten, University of Wisconsin. What about University of Wisconsin Whitewater? I don't think you're so worried about NIL money, right? And it goes on and on. I'm just picking Wisconsin randomly because there's a bunch of schools in Wisconsin or Indiana or Illinois or North Dakota or South Dakota, whatever. It doesn't matter where you're at. But let's pick a place where maybe, well, let's just, for example, North Dakota State. There's not a whole lot of NIL money over there, right? Where academics are actually important. South Dakota State, same thing. University of South Dakota, whatever. Folks, the message that's being sent is it's okay to pay these kids to do something, but it's not okay to pay academics to do something. Well, at the end of the day, these are universities. And these universities are to do what? They're technically preparing these kids, these young adults, for adulthood, for careers, lifelong careers. Well, of course, that's the hope, of course. But generally speaking, pro football players last 2.5 years. That's it in the NFL. 2.5 years. They don't even hardly get past the rookie deal. You got to be in the league about 5 years to really make any money there. Major League Baseball, there's 6+ levels to jump across just to play big league baseball. In hockey, you've got to go through their minor league system. And hopefully you're good enough to get a taste of the National Hockey League. And let's face it, in basketball, now you have a G League where they get paid. But at the end of the day, kids are leaving college basketball. They're leaving universities, I should say, to go play basketball elsewhere. And ultimately, what do we have? We have a bunch in basketball students alone, or I would say basketball students because they're student athletes allegedly, in basketball players at the college and university level. You basically see now a bunch of high school kids that have gone to school for maybe one semester, taking classes just enough to get themselves on academic probation to get through technically one full year of a university level whatever, and then go into the NBA. These kids are not being prepared. It's a long shot to get into professional sports in the first place, but the payoff to these kids playing college football in this particular case, it takes away their amateur standing, and frankly, it takes away from the scholarships, from the academics on top of it. So in what world is this fair to the system, fair to the institutions, especially the state-run institutions? So pick your favorite state university or university of your favorite state. Taxpayer money goes into this. To do what? To promote athletics or academics, the arts, engineering, the sciences, etc., mathematicians, social studies, social students, liberal arts. Guess what? None of that is addressed. Athletics are ruining everything at the high school and college level because they're getting to the kids at the high school level. Folks, don't go anywhere. Lots more to come. I'm going to talk about the Pac-12 in just a moment. Back in a few. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more.
800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. That's 800-957-6209.
The old way of living with diabetes is a pain. You've got to remember to do your testing and always need to stick your fingers to test your blood sugar. The new way to live your life with diabetes is with a continuous glucose monitor. Apply a discrete sensor on your body, and it continuously monitors your glucose levels, helping you spend more time in range and freeing you from painful finger sticks. If you are living with type 1 or type 2 diabetes and you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you might be eligible for a CGM through your insurance benefits. U.S. Med partners with over 500 private insurance companies and Medicare. We offer free shipping, 90-day supplies, and we bill your insurance. Call us today for a free benefits check.
800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. That's 800-659-7805.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow the Sports Circus on social media. You could find us on Instagram at TSC Show. That's TSC Show. On X or Twitter, you could find us at the Sports Circus. And of course, on Facebook, you could find us under Sports Circus. All right, welcome back to everybody on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Everybody watching on television, thanks for joining us also on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, Wild Cable, television affiliates, as well as Hotel TV in over 500,000 rooms in all Nielsen-rated markets in those upscale hotels. I can't tell you which ones, but you know who you are. All those 4- and 5-star properties. In fact, we're even in some 3 stars as well. All right, can't beat that one. All right. Anyway, so I said in the last segment, look, we talked a lot of college football, but I do want to mention something about the remainder of the Pac-12, what's left, because everybody except Oregon State and Washington State have left, and they actually reached a Pac-12 settlement with those schools that left. This was, of course, the Washington Supreme Court ruled in favor of Oregon State and Washington State controlling the conference. Now, the legal positioning over who controls the Pac-12's board and assets is over. The 12 schools currently in the conference released a statement saying that they had reached a settlement regarding their legal fight for who gets what in the conference. And the settlement comes after Washington's Supreme Court ruled in favor of Oregon State and Washington State, the 2 remaining Pac-12 members, after the 2024 school year, and said they had control of the conference's revenues and assets. So maybe they're saying a little, show me the money right now. Now, per the statement from the Oregon State's president and Washington State's president, the 10 teams leaving the conference at the end of the spring season have agreed to, quote, forfeit a portion of distributions over the rest of this calendar year or 2023-2024 year and provide specific guarantees against potential future liabilities, close quote. Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington are headed to the Big Ten next season. Ironically, you're going to see Washington and Michigan play one another, a couple of Big Ten teams, I guess, next season, in the national title game, which I don't think Michigan's going to have too much trouble with Washington, seeing that they play a very different smash-mouth kind of game. Washington hasn't faced this kind of opponent all year. Well, that's all that the Big Ten plays seemingly all year. While the Big 12, of course, is scooping up Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. UCLA and USC announced they were leaving the conference a couple of years ago, basically a year and a half ago, and the Pac-12 officially fell apart, about 6 months ago, when Oregon and Washington went to the Big Ten, and the Big 12 added 4 schools as well. So those moves left the Pac-12 at 4 schools, with Cal and Stanford, along with Oregon State and Washington State. However, Cal and Stanford later joined the Atlantic Coast Conference. So the ACC picked up those two. So the Pac-12's assets are estimated around $400 million. In fact, the statement said, quote, in September, as the two remaining members of the Pac-12 Conference, Oregon State University and Washington State University, were forced to act swiftly to protect the future viability of the Pac-12. The news marks a huge victory for our universities and a significant step towards stabilizing the Pac-12 Conference and preserving its 108-year legacy. This agreement ensures that the future of the Pac-12 will be decided by the schools that are staying, not by those that are leaving, close quote. Now, UCLA and USC were removed from the conference's board after they announced their exit. That was about a year and a half ago. That left 10 schools on the conference board, and Oregon State and Washington State have contended that the other 8 schools forfeited their right to have any input and control of the conference's assets when they left as well. I kind of agree with them. So the settlement comes as Oregon State and Washington State have worked to finalize their sports schedule for the near future. Each Mountain West football team will play either Oregon State or Washington State in 2024, though neither school will officially be a member of that conference. And the schools are working towards an agreement to be members of the West Coast Conference in other sports. And look, this in itself is for loyal listener Larry. Loyal listener Larry is a dedicated Fresno State Mountain West Conference guy. Well, look, ultimately, he thinks that the schools from the Mountain West will migrate into the Pac-12 Conference. The problem with that argument is that almost all of the Mountain West Conference colleges and universities are not up to snuff as research institutes. Now, loyal listener Larry said the same thing. He knows that. However, these universities don't have the resources. They don't have the academic rigor, and they certainly don't have the facilities that the other departed Pac-12 schools have. They are not Power 5 caliber. So the bigger question is, if you're going to try to preserve the Pac-12 conference, the only thing that makes sense is to acquire universities that first meet the academic standards, because there actually is an academic picture to all of this. So the question is, out of the Mountain West, who, if any? Well, I'll tell you one right now. The Air Force Academy could certainly qualify for the Pac-12 Conference. Now, if there were others in the region, just off the top of my head, I'm not looking at anything right now, I would argue that there's enough money in San Diego for San Diego State to convert itself academically and convert itself from a research standpoint, seeing that they are really the big game in Southern California, and I'm talking about in San Diego. That one could make a little bit of sense. Now, if you're going to extend that to San Diego State, you could sort of make a similar argument for San Jose State being right in the middle of Silicon Valley. That may make a little bit of sense, may take some of the sting off of losing Cal as far as having a local university, or I should say Stanford. I mean, nothing's going to academically replace them in the state of California except Caltech or Pomona College, but they don't have the athletic facilities nor the recruiting, so they don't even qualify. But what I'm thinking here is from a Bay Area presence, maybe San Jose State might be able to check some of the boxes with Silicon Valley money. That may make a little bit of sense. Can Fresno State jump in there? I don't know. They don't have the facilities. They certainly don't have the academic rigor. And so these are really big question marks. Who else could you throw in the Pac-12? Is it more likely for Oregon State and Washington State to migrate into the Mountain West Conference? Absolutely. With the dissolution of the Pacific 12 Conference. But if the Pac-12 wanted to revive itself, it would have to take 4 schools from California, It's the only thing that remotely could make sense, but those schools would have to really make the adjustments. San Diego State, Fresno State, San Jose State, and I don't know, maybe a fourth could be, well, you couldn't take Sacramento State even though it is in the state capital. You probably would have to take San Francisco State or possibly Long Beach State. But academically, these are a far, far, far cry from being Pac-12 worthy. Then you would have to add the Air Force Academy, and you might be able to take the two schools from Nevada, which neither are very good, but UNLV is an awful, in my opinion, an awful institution. Reno, maybe they can make the conversion. So you could revive this conference. The problem is then you'd have to take Boise State, which from an athletic standpoint, they qualify, they have for a long time, but they don't have the academic rigor once again. So really what would happen if you rebuilt the Pac-12? Mind you, Oregon State and Washington State are not challenging universities, but the overall academic profile of the Pac-12 would drop dramatically. So it actually makes more sense for Oregon State and Washington State to migrate into the Mountain West because, well, let's face it, academically, they would probably be better fits there. Because the only one that really qualifies right now to go the other direction is the Air Force Academy. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It's hard to make these arguments for some people because they just don't get it. Like loyal listener Larry, God love him, wonderful guy. But he is stuck on athletics. And folks, you've got to understand both sides of this argument because remember, ultimately, these are what? These are universities that happen to have sports. Some are higher level sports, but these are supposed to be institutions of higher education. So how about acting like it? Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Can't beat fun at the old ballpark, friends. High pop fly. That would be a home run in a phone booth. I don't know what the big deal about Cracker Jack is. Did you ever go and buy a pack of Cracker Jack thinking you'd get a prize and find no prize in the box? Here's the pitch. That might not sound important to some people, but when you're a little kid, especially from humble origin, and they cheat you out of a prize. There's a bouncing ball. Second baseman has a Barbary over to first. It's hard to think in laudatory terms of the product.
I think if there was an occasional box of Cracker Jacks that found no prizes for the little Harry Carey many years ago.
You got that right. And boy, when a box of Cracker Jack to me meant a lot of money. Here's a pitch bounce foul. That's the most asinine marketing I've ever heard of. One ball, one strike. These guys say, well, you sing about Cracker Jack. I said, I only sing it because it's in the song. Here's a pitch foul back. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, even to this day, some youngsters who buy a box of Cracker Jack don't find a prize in the box. One ball, two strikes, 2 out. Well, if you're going to talk about a congressman being crooked, here's a pitch foul out of play. Why not talk about commercial products who don't do what they represent to do?
There's a smash to Squires. He's got it. 1, 2, 3, nothing across. We're going to the bottom of the 7th now to score. All tied up. Milwaukee 4, the White Sox 4. Hey! Everybody! All right, Nancy, let me hear you. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back for its root for the White Sox. If they don't win, it's
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Tom Brenneman. How do you not love that music?
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the American Business Trust Company, helping companies with strategy, sales and marketing, capital resources, and establishing companies with physical locations or on the internet. For more information, contact the American Business Trust Company at info@abtrustco.com. That's info@abtrustco.com. Yes! That's my patented yes! In case you're wondering, I've never heard anybody else do that on air. I've been doing that for years and years, and if you ever hear anybody else doing that, make sure you let me know at info@thesportcircus.com. That's info@thesportcircus.com. This way, we don't want anybody to edit the credit or do exactly the same thing we're doing over here, right? We got to make sure that we protect ourselves. But speaking of protection, I'm on a roll with this college football stuff, and I'm going to continue on with Florida State because it's been such a disaster. In fact, such a disaster that Florida State, if they left the ACC, it would have a massive ramification for the future of college athletics in the first place. Now, you know what happened. Of course, they were outed from as 13-0 from going into the college football playoff. They ended up in the Orange Bowl. They only played some of their players, I guess 20-odd players sat down, whatever. They got destroyed 63-3, but then again, nobody cares. Even Kirby Smart said, those guys, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even fair because they weren't 100%. Anyway, so Florida State is called a Board of Trustees meeting, which could produce a legal filing that could start the process of challenging the ACC's grant of rights and could lead to the Seminoles getting out of the conference, which could cause the league to completely fall apart. Of course, that's a lot of coulds. But then again, this is conference realignment, right? Of course, also known as the endless chase for TV revenue money, which has already produced unthinkable developments such as the breakup of the Pac-12, Cal and Stanford going to the ACC, even Rutgers and UCLA matchups to come. I mean, who would have even thought that could happen? Remember, a long time ago, Rutgers was one of the worst athletic programs in the country, but they do have probably the coolest name in the Scarlet Knights. Gotta like that. But Florida State desperately wants out of the ACC and its 20-year contract with the four-letter network, which pays out in the low 30 millions per school annually. And the deal was supposed to bring stability. But since its signing, the SEC and Big Ten have expanded and gotten far richer media rights packages. In fact, it's expected that the schools in those leagues will make twice as much as Florida State and the Seminoles and the rest of the ACC members going forward. Now, I'm a graduate of a Big Ten school and an ACC school. So I kind of get this, and I see it from what the ACC schools are asking for alum support. Moving forward, for Florida State, that, of course, is unappealing, if not unsustainable. The question is, for Florida State, what if this actually works? What if they're the proverbial dog that catches the car? Then what? There is no clear-cut landing place, but there is plenty of talk among the SEC and Big Ten administrators that despite Florida State's football stories, past and present strength, Florida State would be a serious candidate for expansion. Same for Clemson, even with its recent national titles. So, on a competitive level, it doesn't really make sense, but the repeated conventional wisdom is that if the ACC schools were available for poaching, North Carolina and Virginia might be the first choices. Academics, demographics, and the ability to extend a league's footprint into new territories would win out. I think they actually have this wrong in this article because really it would be Duke and Virginia, or it'd be Duke, Virginia, and Wake Forest and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's a pretty good school. Those might be the first choices. Of course, everybody over in the greater Atlanta market would absolutely agree with Georgia Tech being up there academically, because they are. Now, is Georgia Tech as tough as Virginia? No. Is Virginia as tough as Wake Forest? Yes. But are either of those as tough as Duke? No. The top 3 schools in America across the board are Princeton, Yale, and Duke. That's across the board. So North Carolina doesn't really belong in that argument, only athletically, I should say, because of, well, basketball and whatnot. But Duke, of course, owns North Carolina in hoops anyway, so maybe it's the difference is football. Oh, but that's right. Duke actually is a very good football program now. They have one. So nonetheless, the idea is poaching is very prevalent. And so that's what they say at the least for now. Now, a Big Ten source has said, quote, everything changes if schools are truly available. Despite what is said, there has been no reason to examine all of this, so it's hard to know, close quote. Now, the SEC believes to be less likely of an option for Florida State, Clemson, or Miami, the 3 most desirable properties. And this is about football mostly, as I noted. And the league is set to begin its 16-team operation next season, existing in contiguous states. It's already powerful, it is already rich, and it has now taken over the Dallas Metroplex market with SMU. Now, the SEC's goal is to play a level of football that appeals to a national audience, and already has schools in Florida, University of Florida, and South Carolina, University of. And an SEC source said, quote, my sense is there's more opposition than interest, close quote. Now, any move on Florida State and or others would be defensive, mainly to block the Big Ten from gaining a football hold in the region. The Big Ten might be different, though. It's aggressively snapping up television draws and doesn't care whether it makes any geographical sense or cultural sense or traditional sense. And it begins next season as an 18-team entity with a 4-school West Coast wing, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. And of course, it would have made sense for the Big Ten to take, I don't know, maybe Oregon State, not Washington State because it's too far east. Oregon State is right along the Interstate 5 corridor, and it makes more sense for Oregon and Washington and possibly even, well, some of the others. We'll just leave it like that. But the importance of the Big Ten Network is getting basic cable subscriptions, and it still matters, even as cord cutting has limited those numbers. Now, adding exciting football matchups would no doubt appeal to Fox, its main television partner, let alone CBS and NBC. Florida State, Clemson, and Miami all bring that before North Carolina and Virginia. Or maybe North Carolina jumps in with the first 3 schools. You never know. So, an ACC breakup could also force Notre Dame, the most coveted television property, to fit in, if not come aboard full time. At least set up some kind of scheduling agreement with Big Ten like it currently has with the ACC. But I guess what they're forgetting is that Notre Dame already plays the Purdue Boilermakers. They play Michigan and they play Michigan State essentially every year. So they already have a deal with the Big Ten, sort of. So try to put that deal together with the ACC. It's only counterintuitive. Now, the Big Ten likes to speak of its academics, which for sure it has. And, of course, it even has named its divisions, once upon a time, leaders and legends. And its actions are mostly about money, though. But in 2014, it added Rutgers and Maryland for almost no reason other than new cable subscribers over on the East Coast, basically the greater New York, New Jersey market. In 2022, it expanded to Los Angeles to add, of course, the huge TV market, the number 2 market in the nation, but initially chose to pass over Oregon and Washington. And a year later, as the Pac-12 was faltering, the league quickly reversed course when the TV networks expressed the need for better inventory and better teams like the Ducks and Huskies. So, folks, again, money, 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 sports, sports, sports. Where's the academics? Although Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC are very good fits for the Big Ten Conference academically, and they're all research institutes. Now, and last summer, while the Big Ten's Council of Presidents and Chancellors discussed expanding to 20 teams and bringing in Stanford and Cal, both incredibly appealing academic institution in a huge wealthy market that eventually was snuffed out by TV football interest. A separate Big Ten source said, quote, Florida State would appeal to television and get us into the state of Florida, and there is something there, close quote. So therefore, if they do take Florida State, that means they're going to probably try to make a play for what? For Clemson. That would make more sense. Then there's also the possibility of taking both Duke and North Carolina. Now, that may make sense too, but the Florida market may make a little more sense. So then there's also the Big 12, which would gladly snap up just about anything in every ACC school it could to build a massive nationwide operation, but they're acting like the classic bottom feeder, technically a catfish. So the Big 12 commissioner has even focused on basketball, which he views as undervalued. A Big 12 with basketball powers that include Arizona, Kansas, Baylor, Carolina, Duke, Virginia, Louisville, and so on would easily be the best of the country. No question about that. But every turn of conference realignment brings something unexpected. Florida State is firing against the first shots, and the ramifications are massive for the future of college athletics. Why? Well, how about the debacle of the college football playoff? Isn't that enough? I mean, look, it appears willing to barrel into the future with no known destination, no safe harbor, and frankly, I don't blame them. So what's going to happen with the ACC? Well, you've got a bunch of good schools in there, and academically, they are leaps and bounds stronger than the SEC. Outside of Vanderbilt, which is the flagship for the SEC, I would also argue Auburn is a solid institution. Of course, that goes out to our friends over on WAUD. Nice round of applause for them. Everybody listening in Auburn, Alabama. So a solid institution over there. And you might be able to get a little nod with newcomer Texas joining. Academically, they're pretty good. So there's a few spot schools. I would argue Ole Miss has some good programs in there. So does the University of Tennessee. But overall, the ACC academically is leaps and bounds stronger than the SEC. But are we going to see 4 20-team super conferences? I believe that's where this is going, folks. I've been saying this for the last year. I really believe that 4 super conferences, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC will emerge. Now, if the ACC does break up, you may see that other super conference as, believe it or not, the Mountain West Conference. Imagine that. Folks, that's going to do it for today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. We'll see you in about 23 hours on your favorite station right here. Until then, so long, everyone.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.